Now, our next panel is honoring service and leadership in military veterans. Did you know that approximately 6% of active duty service members in the U.S. military identify as AA and NHPI, and that is around 64,800. When it comes to living veterans who identify as such, there are more than 300,000. This panel explores the journeys of AA and NHPI individuals in the military and as veterans. We can look forward to stories of service, leadership, and resilience, addressing challenges such as representation, breaking stereotypes, and navigating identity within military institutions. Our moderator for this session is Sabrina Singh. Sabrina served as the Deputy Pentagon's Press Secretary in the Department of Defense from April 2022 to January 2025. Sabrina previously served as Special Assistant to the President and Deputy Press Secretary for Vice President Kamala Harris in the Biden administration. Please welcome Sabrina and the esteemed panelists to the stage.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. Good afternoon. I know we have limited time, so I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to let our panelists all introduce themselves and give a quick explanation on why they decided to serve. So, Ravi, please.
Hey everybody, my name is Ravi Chaudhry. I currently work with Jet Zero, and I'm the former Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Energy, Installations, and the Environment. Big title, but prior to that, I was with the Obama administration as the AANHPI Commissioner.
Hello everyone. Before I say anything else, let me just make a timely statement. As of yesterday, because Mother's Day was yesterday, let me say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers in the room.
Happy Mother's Day.
My name is Steve de Guzman. My formal title and my day job is Chief of Workforce Design, the United States Space Force. I'm a federal worker. I retired as the Mission Requirements Manager for the United States Space Force, managing all 700,000 employees of our Air Force. And with that portfolio, now I get to continue doing some of my job with the skill sets that the Air Force and Space Force have granted me in nonprofit work. So I'm happy to be here and share my story.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vineet Mehta. I am currently the Executive Director of Information Governance for Comcast Corporate, so we're over in Philadelphia. Prior to that, we'll talk more about this very non-linear career. Worked at Prudential back office operations as a manager there, did some supply chain consulting, and all during that time, spent some time in the Marine Corps. Over 22 years in the Marine Corps, active duty time, reserve time. So very, 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 very happy to be here. So thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm the baby boomer here, so you can call me Grandma, Grandpa. I'm Tony Taguba, served in the United States Army for 34 years. Immigrated here with my family in 1961. Landed in Hawaii. Hawaii, of course, was stated 1959. Joined the military after my graduation from college and followed the tradition of my dad and also his relative as well. My father served in World War II, was a Bataan Death March survivor. Was imprisoned by the Japanese. So I took that as a model for me to follow the tradition in my family. I have a nephew, and my son also serves today in the United States Army. And my passion was serving in the country, the country that gave us the opportunity to be American citizens.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lorna Mae DeVera. I'm a U.S. Navy Reserve retired naval officer. I spent 10 years as enlisted, and then the other 14 as an officer. Happy to be here today. I enlisted out of a need for education, tuition support, and it was a valuable experience. And I do not come from a military family, but I do come from a background where my father was a civilian survivor of the World War II occupation in the Philippines. So really delighted to be here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you to our panelists. I'm going to shoot this question over to Ravi, Lorna Mae, and Tony. In an increasingly politically polarized environment, what are some of the challenges facing our community serving in the military today? Do you want to start us off?
So Sabrina, first of all, it's great to be on stage with you again after our service in DoD. Honestly, we took a look at this in the Obama administration, and we're seeing the full range of challenges that AAPIs may find when they're served. Some are related to the cultural newness of the environment you're in, but we're also seeing some of the worst as well. Some unspeakable acts, from microaggressions to challenges just fitting in their environment. If I shared with you a few things, you wouldn't believe them. Some of them are cut so deeply to the bone that you find so hard repeating. And the worst of the worst includes hazing that caused the deaths of several trainees, including Raheel Siddiqui and Harry Liu, who succumbed to extreme acts of hazing. So when we added that up when we were in the Obama administration, we came to the conclusion that we can't not do something. And it starts with education. But we saw a major spike right during the COVID period and the backlash more broadly against Asian Americans serving. And so to me, that was a real important moment for me to understand that we have to educate the broader community on the contributions. And that's why Tony and I kind of put that video together, and we struggled with, hey, how do we turn, over 200 years of service into 6 minutes? But we found a way through some great editors to really try to encapsulate that as best as we can. So to me, I think the issues are broad and wide, which is why we can't fail to continue telling our stories, and that's the message I'm bringing today.
Thank you. Over to Tony for that question.
I came in the Army in 1972, and racial discrimination was rampant. It was still, the Vietnam War was still raging. And it's pretty much about the representation, because 6%, we were not 6% then, I can tell you that. It's a onesies and twosies. We had to find somebody that we could actually help us progress along the time. So today is going to be a bit more difficult, I think. Nobody understands this thing called DEI. Folks, people join the military because they want to serve their country. It's not about making a lot of money. And for some matter, when Asian Americans, or which we are underrepresented anyway, and when we take that oath of office and we recite the Constitution, we guarantee our mission with our lives. We just don't stay in the office and say, okay, I'm going to do another paperwork, whatever have you. Once you get in combat, and I've been shot at, you don't think about the color of your skin. We just want to represent, and we don't have enough representation in the military today, in closing along with women. So we progress over time. We have women who are flying jets, as you saw on TV. We have women in submarines, commanding submarines. We have women in artillery. We have women in armor. I'm a tanker by trade, tanks. And when I first met a lieutenant, second lieutenant, female, Latina woman, I said, "Do you have enough muscles to carry the round? The round that you put in the breech of that tank weighs about 50 pounds inside a turret, compressed." So we've literally improved ourselves in getting our military straight. But I think with everything else that's going on in the Department of Defense, transformation, whatever have you, we're going to dilute the progress that we have today, and it's going to be very, very tragic if we don't consider our young men and women to join the military, because they won't trust us. They won't trust the leadership because of the journey that we're going to be taking. It's going to be transformed again, one more time. And Michael Horst and I don't know what the next U.S. Armed Forces is going to look like. We're already 1.5 million out of representing 343 million. We are like a cheap date, right? Protecting, and we're in 120 countries today, nurturing. So let's try to do a lot more better for us to make our military more progressive and more accepting, more represented than we have recently.
That's a great part for Lorna May to pick up on.
So it's funny because I've been asked this question several times, and I enlisted in 1993, so it was just the beginning of women starting to serve on ships, et cetera. And it's funny because when I reflect back on my career, nothing racially discrimination pops out at me. What does pop out is sexism. So imagine having to juggle both sexism and racism, right? So fortunately, as I said, racism wasn't too much. But when it comes to dealing with it, right, 24 years, how does one survive? General Taguba just mentioned one word. It's about representation, right? So it's being humble and understanding what my place was. If I gave up, if I didn't do the fight, if I didn't stand up for myself, that means I'm going to get overlooked, which means it's not going to open the door for anybody else behind me. So it was really just having the education, the confidence, the support system from both my parents to say, you belong where you are, be firm, be smart, speak up at the right time in the right place. So when it comes to what the issues are today, they're pretty much the same as it was before. It's gotten better, but it really is just having a support system to be able to know that I belong, and if others can't see that, if others can't accept that, if others can't adjust to that, that's on them. It wasn't on me. And I needed to be aware of that. And the way I was aware of that was through the support of my parents. So family and culture has a lot to do with it. So that's how I respond to that.
So Stephen and Vineet, you've heard about some of the challenges facing our military, but to both of you, what are some of the potential solutions to these challenges, and what gives you hope?
I'll just go back to kind of answering two questions. One, the first one, why I joined, and maybe I'll slightly diverge from what's been said. And part of the reason why I said we should thank our mothers, because yesterday was Mother's Day. The reason why I joined, and the reason why I love America, is my mom was the first immigrant mom. She had to raise 2 kids on her own in this country. It, statistically speaking, would never happened if your education level was equivalent to a 4th grader and you knew 12 words of English. So she had to figure out a way to work 2 to 3 jobs. And in America, raising 2 kids on her own. And again, I don't think that in any other country, the type of opportunity and abundance that we have as a nation would be afforded to someone like that. So her work ethic is what inspired me to do it. And recognizing that this is the land of opportunity, I joined to support and give back. Now that I have kids of my own, I stayed and continued serving in every aspect I can because of the same reason. I want to maintain that lifestyle, that American lifestyle, and be thankful that America is what it is today, and as an example to the world as far as a land of opportunity. And I still believe it's amazing, and it's worth serving and protecting and upholding and keeping dear. So I think if you find that reason for yourself, joining the military would be one of those avenues to give back.
When I'm hearing these stories, it's so interesting because it's all very similar, slightly different, but very similar, right? Like my dad came in the 1970s, with like $500 in a suitcase, right? And said, okay, I'm going to make it, and, worked his butt off and, because he knew that there was going to be this opportunity that didn't exist back home, right? And so he took a huge risk, made it, and he devoted his life, and he's still alive. He devotes his life to service, right? Like, as soon as he got his citizenship, he's like, all right, I'm going to serve on the local council. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And it was more local level, but still, it was very, very impactful for me. And so that's kind of why I said I need to pay this forward, right? And so, you talked about belonging, and one of the things we at my company, right, we have these affinity groups, we call them employee resource groups, right, where our tagline is, you don't have to be to belong. And that is a huge piece because our VetNet group right now is currently led by a non-veteran, non-military spouse. Like, she's just a civilian. She never had any military experience, no spouse in the military. So we implore that kind of initiative, right? Because that's the only way we're going to bridge that sort of divide, right? And break down the stigmas, right? And we can go into stigmas that we've been through, but I know we don't have a lot of time, so.
That's great. I'd like to pose this question to all of our panelists, and maybe I'll start at the end with Lorna May. How did your time in service help prepare you for the career that you're in today? And maybe there's some folks thinking about ROTC programs or going into the reserves at some point. So would love to hear how service really prepared you to where you got to today.
I'm so incredibly thankful for everything I learned in the military, because everything was basically, if it wasn't in a classroom, it was literally on-the-job training, drinking from a fire hydrant. So a lot of discipline, time management, people skills. You got to work with everybody in the military, right? Everybody, age group, background, economics. And so for me, today, with where I work, it has brought me so much. It allows me to be structured, patient, organized, and productive in leading the teams of very diverse backgrounds that aren't included. My teams don't include military veterans. So I'm so thankful for that training in the military that just allowed me to understand people at the root of everything. And then from the people, the organization, and the management skills from there.
I can confirm that the military does teach you how to manage and organize your time very well. Major General. Go ahead, Tony.
On my 10th year of service, I was so frustrated that I was not progressing. I was not in tanks. I was in artillery, infantry, engineer, the whole thing. All I wanted to do was serve in tanks. I mean, I'm short enough I could fit in a tank. But then, I learned a quote from somebody that basically said, this one person said, don't get mad, don't get even, get ahead. And that really, I followed that good advice, and so I stayed, went to Germany, got master's degrees. I have 3 of them. I competed. I tell people that, I think I'm as good as you. I might not be as big as you, but I did that. And I took care of folks that were like Asians primarily. They're very quiet. They're like in the corner or whatever have you. And I call them out. I said, listen, we can't be progressing if you're not going to succeed or proceed. Let's just get on with it. And I didn't dream about being a major general. I was going to retire as a lieutenant colonel, but I sought mentors who are also my tormentors. Okay? They're not going to tell you what you want to hear. They're going to tell you what you're not doing. Mentorship, tormentorship, they're all in one person. And I learned that so much that we succeeded and we organized, and a group of us, retirees, having dim sum one day, and we said, no, Asian Americans are like 6% lower in the scale between black Americans and white Americans. So we created a program called the Pan-Pacific American Leaders and Mentors, 2007. So we got all the generals together, and I said, we need to do something to at least provide them a modicum and a model, or also a somewhat of a forum for them to come and, we don't want to be a 911. We want mentorship to be transformational, not transactional. And that's how we look at it. You want them to proceed. And we also want them that when you look back after you succeed and you look back behind you, you say, who else is going to come forward? Then you got to pay forward. And it's working, 18 years in the making. And we're still here. We have members in Okinawa, Japan, and also South Korea, all the way through the United States. And then we have members in Europe, Germany, Italy. So we're international, and I think we're surviving, right? And because we want our kids, not our kids, but our leaders, especially Asian Americans, to progress and to be upfront. Don't be afraid.
Great. Well, over to Vineet to answer, how did service prepare you?
Yeah, so quick funny story. When I first came off active duty, I interviewed for a small IT firm, and I walked in there, and it's for like a chief operating officer role. It's a very tiny company. Great interview, went really well. And then at the end of the interview, he goes, hey, can I talk to you off the record? I said, yeah, sure, what's up? And he goes, that was a refreshing interview. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I saw your resume, I saw Marine, I thought you were going to be all robotic and yes sir, no sir. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I really said, really? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, that's kind of the opposite of how we're trained. We're trained to be malleable, we're trained to be flexible, we're trained to be apply perspective. And it kind of took him by surprise, and it took me by surprise because I was not aware of that stigma. And so I've really tried to remember that and make sure that I do my part, right? When we're trying to hire military veterans or we're trying to recruit people, right? I always try to say, okay, like, to tell hiring managers, like, let's look past that point, right? Because it's a stigma that I really don't appreciate, but I guess I understand. So, I mean, I guess I see why, but it's incorrect, right? And so, so a couple of things that have helped me a lot was applying perspective, right? Applying perspective to everything, right? My last boss was like, hey, when I hired you to break things apart, I need you to do that. I need you to question everything. I know you're not going to know the answer, but I want you to question. And then the whole concept, again, somebody else taught, I don't take credit for anything, right? But another leader taught me about glass balls, rubber balls, right? As a leader, you're kind of juggling, you're always juggling these different balls, right? At some point, you're gonna be overloaded. You're gonna have to drop one. Do you want to drop the glass ball or the rubber ball, right? In terms of importance, right? If it's not that important, drop the rubber ball. It'll bounce back. You'll get it later. Keep those glass balls in the air. So those are some of the things I kind of take with me every day.
Over to you, Stephen.
I could spend hours answering this question because it's hard to specifically call out certain skills or things you learned in the military that apply today. The most basic that comes to mind, and General Takuba, you kind of brought it up. What's the difference when you wear the uniform, when you go to work wearing a uniform? Well, we wrote a check, and that check included up to and including our lives to accomplish that mission or objective. So having that mindset drilled into me for 21 years, when I go to any industry and they're saying, oh my God, the building's on fire, I look at the building on fire and go, okay, let's go put it out. I don't freak out. Why? Because for 21 years, I was ready to go. I was ready to rock in any international environment, any scary environment, austere environment, and multiple $1 billion on the line or multiple lives on the line. I got conditioned to understand that things just go wrong and you have to keep a level head and work through it. The mission still gets done, and that's what many veterans gain in our experience, is when you wear that uniform, you know that danger's on the line. You get accustomed to danger in extreme cases so that by the time you have a pseudo danger, right, relative to what you've been wearing your uniform seeing, it's not as bad to us. That's probably something I could speak on behalf of my community. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks. That's really powerful. So I'll relate it in the way that I know how. My background is I'm a pilot through and through. And I'll tell you a story. So we had this opportunity. We got on this crew. I flew C-17s, a big transport. It takes tanks, troops. It takes folks like Tony, if you can fit his head in the stuff. Got you, Tony. So we're on this crew, and we're flying over, and we realize on the way over we had to stop over in Europe. And as crew, we realized that we had a very diverse crew. Just every culture, Japanese American, Indian American, Muslim, Indian, black, white, everybody in that 10-person crew. And so when you land in Germany, you take the opportunity to hit the pub and go out together as a crew, and that's where you bond. You know, we've all seen Top Gun. You know, you got to go to the pub. And so we hit the pub, and we were kind of standing around, and you could tell we're GIs. You got the haircut for it. And so somebody came up to us and said, wow, what do you guys do? Are you in the United States military? And we said, yeah, we're a crew. We fly C-17s. We're flying missions in Afghanistan. And the person was beside themselves. They couldn't believe it. They literally said to us, you know, I see all these different cultures. How do you fly a plane together? How do you get it? They had no concept of it. And the person next to them literally said, I would imagine the plane would just crash. But that's when my crew replied, almost in unison, that's what makes America great. You see, my military story didn't teach me what it was like to be a professional. It taught me what it's like to be a great American. And I brought that to my profession even today in the post-career environment. And that's why we've got to keep these stories going. And we can't forget or let anybody erase the greatness of what it is to be side by side with each other, serving our nation. There is no greater pinprick into the heart of our adversaries than to see all of our cultures standing side by side in the same formation. It's who we are as a nation, and we can never forget that. And so I actually want to do I'm super proud to announce that because of that commitment, because of President Biden's executive order to establish a national Museum for Asian Pacific Americans. I'm proud to announce today that the first tranche of this is going to be led as a military and veteran story branch, and we're going to make it real and make it lead off the rest of our effort. And with the leadership of Grace Toe over there, we're going to get this done and get it moving forward. So we are super excited to do that, but let that be an example that we cannot allow our stories to go away. They are part of the American story, part of the American dream, and we can't let go of that.
Okay, so we have just under 3 minutes. So if we can keep it short, maybe 30 seconds each. I just want to close with, what is the best advice you've ever received in your career, whether it be in the military or outside of that? So why don't you start us off?
Never trust anyone over 40, period. Keep the flags of discontent. It's me too, Tony, all right? Don't worry about it. I'm with you too. No, but seriously, that was one serious piece of advice. But finally, just remember one thing. There is only one thing that will allow the darkness to come back into our lives. And that's when good people stand on the sidelines. Don't do it. Get in the fight, be present. Thank you for being here and continuing that, and think about how you can bring that to your communities.
Great. Stephen?
I actually kind of have the same thing. So whoever taught you that, sir, taught me the same. But so the saying for me was, evil only wins when good people do nothing, right? If you see evil in the world, the only reason why it's anything like that succeeds is that we, America, we don't stand together, and we don't, come side by side and support each other. Whether you're Asian, whether you're black, whether you're Mexican, Latin, whatever the case may be, I view Americans as Americans first, and I stand beside you if our country is threatened, and I make sure that all our mothers are protected, and all our children are protected, and their children will be protected. That's the reason why I serve, and I hope that others find the same reason to come join us or tell their friends to serve as well.
Thank you.
So, most of you probably heard the term, bloom where you're planted. I don't subscribe to that unless you have a leader that leads like a gardener, right? So instead of being the puppet master, the leader needs to be, has to water, feed, care, get rid of the weeds, allow that plant to bloom. So that's the best piece of advice that I ever got, and I take that to heart. I try to, I'm not perfect, but I try to lead like that. So,
Like I mentioned, I live by my own motto: don't get mad, don't get even, get ahead. It's very, very endearing to me that when you help someone, young and old, to get ahead and to progress, I just want them to say, thank you, and I'm going to follow your lead. I'm going to do the same thing. That's how we progress. I mean, I always look at the youngsters out there as my daughters and my son, and I don't want my family to fail. I don't want anybody to fail. We don't join the Army, the military, the Navy, whatever have you, because they don't want to fail. Nobody wants to fail, right? Otherwise, you're in the wrong profession. I just want those that we can help to succeed over time.
I think the biggest advice that stayed with me was at my 10-year mark when I almost got out of the Navy because I wasn't getting along with my leadership. This was prior to having mentors. And so basically, the petty officer I spoke with said, don't walk out now because you love the Navy. You've worked hard to get to this 10-year mark. So if you walk out, that means that person that is controlling you gets to walk away with her retirement, and you will walk away with nothing. So that shifted my mindset. And so I ended up with 24 years with my retirement, vice walking out and having nothing at 10 years.
And she's a PPOM member.
Yes, proud people.
Along with Denise Lewis.
Well, thank you to our panelists. Thanks for joining us today, and really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.